Think your life is tough? Try surviving in ancient Rome. No air conditioning, no painkillers, no Netflix, and your next meal depends on your social rank. The marble forums and triumphal arches, they're just the highlight reel crafted by the elite. Beneath the grandeur was a world of dirt, disease, and danger, a daily struggle for the masses. Today we're peeling back the myth to reveal the raw, unfiltered existence of the common Roman. Forget emperors and legions. This is about the millions whose daily lives were a fight for survival. We'll journey into crowded tenements, disease-ridden streets, and the backbreaking labor that powered Rome. Get ready to see the Eternal City not as a monument, but as a living, often unforgiving ecosystem. In the heart of Rome, over 1 million people lived, most in towering, rickety tenements called insulae. These cramped, noisy buildings were home to families packed into single, windowless rooms. Privacy didn't exist. The thin walls echoed with arguments, crying infants, and sickness. The air was thick with the stench of unwashed bodies and waste, which was often tossed straight into the streets below. Vermin, rats, fleas, lice were everywhere, spreading disease in these deadly incubators. The poor survived on the grain dole, coarse bread, and the occasional olive or vegetable. Meat was a rare luxury. Malnutrition was rampant, leaving bodies weak and vulnerable to infection. Fire was a constant threat. Wooden insulae and open flames meant a stray spark could turn homes into tombs within minutes. Each day began before dawn, a relentless scramble for work and food with no safety nets. Illness or injury could mean destitution, begging, or even selling children into servitude. Life was lived on a knife's edge, survival a daily victory. The grandeur of Rome was built not on marble but on the resilience and suffering of its ordinary people. Their lives, though unrecorded, were a testament to human endurance. In this chaotic, dangerous world, every sunrise was a triumph. For the Roman poor, just making it through the day was a monumental achievement. This was the real foundation of the empire. Rome's aqueducts were engineering marvels, but their benefits flowed mostly to the wealthy. The poor hauled water up endless stairs, while the city's famed sewers barely reached their neighborhoods. For most, the streets doubled as sewers. Rain turned alleys into rivers of filth. Public latrines were communal benches with shared sponges, perfect for spreading disease. The grand baths, social hubs of the city, were also breeding grounds for infection. Unchlorinated water, open sores, and no real understanding of germs. Romans blamed bad air or angry gods for disease, never suspecting the real culprits. Infant mortality was staggering. 1 in 3 babies died before their first birthday. Malaria, typhus, dysentery, and tuberculosis were constant threats. Epidemics like the Antonine Plague could wipe out 1/4 of the population. A small cut could kill you. A drink from the wrong fountain could mean days of agony. Life expectancy was short, and death was always close. The city's flow of water was matched by a tide of filth and disease. For most Romans, daily life was a gamble against invisible killers. Prayer and ritual were their only defenses. The marvels of Roman engineering couldn't save the masses from the city's deadly realities. In Rome, survival was a matter of luck as much as strength. The city's beauty hid a constant, invisible war with disease. For the common Roman, every day was a fight to stay alive. Rome's wonders weren't built by magic, they were built on human suffering. The poor worked as porters, construction laborers, tanners, and fullers, exposed to danger and filth for meager pay. Injury meant ruin. There was no safety net, just the street or the beggar's bowl. Below them were the slaves, the true engines of the empire, treated as property, not people. Slaves toiled in mines where life expectancy was measured in months, or on vast estates, chained and whipped from dawn to dusk. Even domestic slaves faced constant fear, abuse, punishment, and no rights. The luxury of the elite was built on this system of relentless exploitation. The Colosseum, the roads, the aqueducts, all monuments to both genius and suffering. Rome's strength was forged in the mines, fields, and workshops by millions whose lives were consumed by labor. Their silent toil was the true foundation of Roman civilization. The empire's success was an uncomfortable secret. It thrived on the backs of the oppressed. For most, work was a sentence, not a path to prosperity. The grandeur of Rome was paid for in sweat, blood, and broken bodies. The story of Rome is the story of those who built it, and were broken by it. Their suffering powered the empire's rise. Rome's glory came at a staggering human cost. Falling ill in Rome was terrifying. Medicine was a mix of guesswork, superstition, and danger. Doctors believed in balancing 4 humors, often using bloodletting which weakened or killed patients. Surgery was a last resort. No anesthesia, no sterilization, and a high chance of death from shock or infection. Instruments were wiped, not cleaned, spreading bacteria from patient to patient. Remedies ranged from herbal cures to animal dung, lead, and arsenic. Sometimes helpful, often deadly. Dentistry was brutal. Toothaches meant extractions with forceps, often taking bone with the tooth. Dental abscesses could be fatal, and smiles revealed more gaps than teeth. Childbirth was the most dangerous time for women. Midwives relied on tradition, and complications were usually fatal. Many women died young, worn out by repeated pregnancies and loss. With medicine so uncertain, many Romans turned to the gods, leaving offerings and praying for miracles. Faith was often more comforting than the physician's knife. The line between cure and curse was razor thin. For most, illness was a death sentence. The real miracle was surviving at all. In Rome, medicine was as likely to kill as to cure. Justice in Rome was a privilege of the elite. The poor faced a system stacked against them. Social status, not the crime, determined your fate. A noble might pay a fine. A poor man could be tortured or killed for the same offense. Trials were swift, rights were few, and a slave's testimony only counted if tortured out of them. Punishments were public and brutal. Crucifixion for slaves and rebels, burning for arsonists, and being torn apart by beasts for entertainment. The infamous parricide sentence, sewn into a sack with animals and thrown into the river. Prisons were filthy, dark dungeons where many died before trial. The law was a weapon for the powerful, not a shield for the weak. Fear and spectacle kept the masses in line. The system maintained order by terror, not fairness. True justice was rare, reserved for the privileged few. For most, the law was something to fear, not trust. The shadow of Roman law was long and dark. In Rome, justice was a show, and the poor were the victims. The scales were always tipped against the powerless. The Roman army was a machine of conquest, but for the legionary, it was a life of hardship and danger. Poor men signed up for 25 years, trading youth for a wage and a distant promise of land. Training was brutal, endless marches, heavy gear, and strict discipline enforced by the centurion's staff. Disobedience meant flogging or even death by your own comrades. Battle was chaos, tight formations, close combat, and the psychological toll of killing up close. Off the battlefield, soldiers endured harsh climates, disease, and monotonous rations. Medical care was primitive. Wounds often led to infection and death. Many died not in battle but from disease in the camps. Retirement rewards were uncertain. Land in hostile territories, pensions delayed or denied. Many veterans ended up destitute, unable to adjust to civilian life. Soldiers built roads and forts spreading Roman order, but also left a trail of destruction. The peace of Rome was bought with blood, of its soldiers and its victims. The army was both builder and destroyer. For the common soldier, glory was rare. Suffering was constant. The empire's might rested on the backs of men who paid dearly for its expansion. In Rome, women's lives were defined by men first as daughters, then as wives, always under male authority. Most girls received little education, trained only for domestic duties and motherhood. Marriage was arranged, often at a young age, with little say in the matter. Childbirth was the greatest danger, a cycle of pregnancy, loss, and survival that wore women down. Women could own property, but public life was off limits. No voting, no office, always scrutinized. Poor women worked alongside men, facing all the hardships of poverty plus the vulnerabilities of their gender. Disease, labor, and child-rearing and squalor were daily realities. Children's lives were equally precarious. High infant mortality meant emotional distance. Unwanted infants, especially girls, could be abandoned or sold. Childhood was short. Work began as soon as possible. There was no protected innocence, just small adults struggling to survive. The circumstances of birth set the limits of their future. For most, life was a fight from the very start. The stories of women and children reveal the hidden cost of Rome's greatness. Their struggles were the silent backbone of the empire. Ancient Rome was advanced, if you were rich, powerful, and male. For everyone else, life was short, brutal, and full of danger. The marvels of Rome didn't reach the crowded tenements or protect the powerless. The peace of the empire was built on the suffering of millions. To romanticize Rome is to ignore the price paid by the majority. Their resilience is the true Roman legacy, a reminder that comfort is hard-won and never guaranteed. Still think your 9 to 5 is bad? Hit like if you're glad you weren't born in 200 BC and subscribe for more uncomfortable truths from history.